Hey, I want to show up a new feature coming in Drupal 10.1.0. We have added a new development settings form that allows enabling Twig development mode and disabling markup caching. When you check the Twig development mode checkbox, you're going to get Twig debug mode on by default and disable Twig cache. And there's two important things here. So when you turn on Twig debug, you get the dump command and it will show template suggestions in your HTML and also automatically recompile Twig templates. So if you edit your template, they'll recompile. By default, we also disable Twig cache. You could choose to uncheck this, and essentially with Twig debug cache or with Twig cache disabled, it will never compile templates. So this can be up to a matter of preference, but we just disable it by default. And then checking the do not cache markup checkbox turns off render cache, dynamic page cache, and page cache. Because when you edit something on the page, there's all these different layers that are holding back previous markup. And by clicking Save Changes, you can go back to your home page or any page on the site. If you view the source, you'll start to see all of the Twig debug content showing up and be able to theme your site more easily. And I want to take a minute to just show how this works underneath the hood. So I'm going to get back to our form and back to PHP Storm. And I'm going to quick turn off my server and add back with Xdebug turned on. We're going to go ahead and turn off. I'm going to reset the form and ignore my breakpoints. So and then again, if we go back, we'll see that Twig debug mode was turned off and all of that extra stuff was put back in place. So let's go ahead and step through. How it works is we registered a compiler pass. So when the settings form is saved, it invalidates the service container, and then we modify the service container at the next compilation. So again, breakpoints on, click Save Settings, and in it we grab our state service, which accesses the database at the key value table. And we'll see that we have Twig debug and Twig cache disable is true. This fetches the Twig config parameter and applies our default values. And then it checks if we're disabling render cache. And it goes through each cache bin. It'll first make sure that the null backend is registered. And what the null backend factory does is kind of self-explanatory. If you try to get something from it, it returns null. If you try to set something, it sets nothing. So that way it's bypassing cache. We register that, and then we go through and re-register the default backend for these cache bins. And then you're able to bypass all of Drupal's theming layer caches rather, and all the Twig and enable Twig debugging. There's one follow-up that we're working on. When you disable these settings, we don't flush the cache, so you kind of get like a snapshot in time back. But going and doing a cache clear does fix that, but we'll be working on that in a follow-up. So this should bring some great developer experience improvements to Drupal 10.1 when it releases in June this year.